Have you ever felt so nervous starting your speech that you felt like you were losing your audience's interest?
Yeah, I truly did not know it was going to be this one when on the way here.
Now, I applaud the cast for using their platform to speak out on such an important topic. But if I could coach Jason Sudeikis, here are the 3 things that I would tell him to do differently in this week's installment of Speaker Film Study. If you're new to my channel, then welcome. My name is Preston Chin. My career spans from broadcasting to business development and public speaking. And on this channel, I help you speak so that people will want to listen.
Yeah, so thank you for taking an interest, and I know you're here for bigger reasons than us. But
Now, there are 2 parts of Jason's intro that I think could have gone better. The first is around his message. The second is around his delivery. Let's start with his message. He starts off by saying,
and I know you're here for bigger reasons than us.
Now, this is problematic because it undermines his credibility as a speaker and the topic itself. It signals to the audience that they don't actually need to listen because they're here for far more important things. Now, your audience's attention is highest at the beginning and the end of your speech. So to capitalize on that attention, here's what I would have said. I know you're here for other important topics, but for the next 5 minutes, I want to discuss a very important topic that brought us on stage here today to the White House, and that is to raise awareness to mental health.
I just want to say that on behalf of myself, everyone here with me today, and the numerous other folks that it takes to make our show, Ted Lasso, it is sincerely an honor to visit the White House and to have the opportunity to speak to the President and to the First Lady.
When he starts out by saying, and yeah, and he darts his eyes across the crowd without locking eye contact. He looks at his script quite a lot. This signals nervousness, and that is understandable, especially when he's been put on the spot to present. But what any speaker can and should do, especially when they're nervous, is to take a deep breath while on stage before you speak. To look across the audience, locking eye contact with at least 2 people for 3 seconds, and smiling. Doing this is not only okay and helps you speak more confidently, but it signals to your audience that you own the stage and that you are worth listening to.
So, no matter who you are, no matter where you live, no matter who you voted for, we all probably, I assume, we all know someone who has, or have been that someone ourselves actually, that's struggled, that's felt isolated, that's felt anxious, that has felt alone, right? And it's actually one of the many things that believe it or not, that we all have in common.
I like that he addresses the problem head on. It explains why he's here today. But what I would have done differently is told him, show, don't tell.
That means that it's something that we can all, and should talk about with one another when we're feeling that way, or when we recognize that in someone feeling that way. So please, we encourage everyone, and this is a big theme of the show, is to check in with your neighbor, your coworker, your friends, your family.
When you show, you're allowing your audience to engage by interpreting why you're here. Let me explain this with a very simple example. Compare these 2 statements. Statement 1, 8 times 5 equals 40. Statement 2, what's 7 times 6? In the first statement, you're probably like, yeah, so what? But in the second statement, you probably thought 42. This is an example of how we as humans are naturally inclined to problem solve to figure things out. So when you tell a story, you're allowing your audience to piece together why this story is so meaningful. What's the takeaway that leads you here speaking in front of them? And that's what we're missing, because frankly, the audience is actually still wondering, is this a skit for SNL? Why is Ted Lasso here to discuss this other than to promote his movie? When you provide that story, that personal connection to the problem, you've now made your audience care about the problem. In Jason's case, I don't know personally, but did he have a personal struggle with mental health? Did he empathize particularly with Ted Lasso's character going through his many panic attacks that made him want to be part of this cast? The key to remember is that when you're presenting, you're not just there to deliver a message, you're there to connect with your audience. And when you can tell a personal story, that's a far more powerful way to accomplish that.
That's it for us, all right? Thank you very much. All right, see you guys. Thank you sincerely so much for having us and putting up with us. Now on to greener pastures.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right,
Thank
see
you
you guys.
guys.
The third and final piece I would have given Ted feedback on is his call to action. It was particularly muddy. Now, he does say in the middle of his speech,
So please, we encourage everyone, and it's a big theme of the show is like to check in and listen. We also have to know that we shouldn't be afraid to ask for help ourselves, and that does take a lot, especially when it's something that has such a negative stigma to it, such as mental health, and it doesn't need to be that way. And
Now, these are really powerful messages, but this actually gets lost in his speech for two reasons. The first is that he doesn't save his call to action for the end of his speech when his audience's attention is highest. And the second reason is he doesn't use signposts. If I were Ted to conclude my speech, I would have said, "Now, thanks so much for your time. Before we depart, I'd like to leave you with two important messages. The first is to check in with people and ask how they're doing, because you never know how someone's feeling, and if you ask at the appropriate time, you can be there when they need it most. And the second is to ask for help yourself when you need it. I did this personally, my character Ted Lasso did this, and it's helped us get through struggles in our life. One of the hardest parts when delivering a speech is to speak with such confidence and clarity while being put on the spot. But Adam Sandler does a great job here of not only doing that, but also speaking to his audience of thousands like they're all his friend. Check out how he does that and what you can learn from that right here.